I'm really delighted to be the after-lunch entertainment, the kind of the bridge between the morning and the afternoon. And it is my honor to be in this big old room with so many of you who I know and many of you who I don't. If you don't yet know me, my name is Malika Edquist. I'm an independent consultant, and I have been privileged over the last 3.5 years to get to know many of you in this community through many different roles, most primarily through the Clean Economy Coalition of Wisconsin. And I'm really delighted that today I was tapped to have a conversation that has been bothering me since we began this work pulling together this coalition nearly 4 years ago now. And Renew was a founding member of that coalition. But at that moment, we were talking about the future of clean energy in our state and the new opportunities that were coming down, both from different federal funding, headwinds, kind of lessening, potential tailwinds coming up behind us in the political economy of the state, and really, truly, in the actual economy, the way that things were shifting in the market, primarily through the work of many of those of you who are in the industry today as things expand towards clean energy, home electrification, healthy homes, et cetera. We understand that as that market expands, so too must the workforce grow to meet it, and that has been a sticky widget for us because we have traditional workforce partners, we have traditional clean economy and environment partners, and sometimes it can feel like ne'er the twain shall meet. How is it that we can build sustainable bridges between emerging technologies and emerging career industries, some that are fueled through sometimes onerous access to federal dollars? Some of you know this, or you've worked with rebates before, that it can be a little bit frustrating to navigate both on the client side and for you as a contractor. So how do we do that and then also encourage more folks to come into these industries as they're expanding? And specifically, how do we do that in an equitable way so that those new opportunities that hit the communities that need the opportunities most? We're talking about building on-ramps that don't just exist at the front door to a technical college or a university or even an employer, but actually expanding those on-ramps all the way into the communities where there are willing workers who are eager to join the opportunities that are unfolding. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm really excited to share the stage with some folks who I have been delighted to get to know better because of their work, pioneering the kinds of relationships that I think that we need to be bringing to scale and figuring out a way to replicate for more communities across the state and across the region. These are 4 different panelists who are skilled in each of their specific fields, but they have partnered with each other to great effect to expand the opportunities for folks who are interested and willing in joining clean energy industry workforces, and those who from inside of a community, and the technical skills that they may need or the partnerships that they may need to really make those things happen. So without further ado, I'm going to go sit down next to my panelists, and we're going to have a nice chat today, first to get to know each of them individually, and then to talk about some of the partnerships that they've been building out, and then we will have time at the end for some questions from all of you, because the big challenge is how do we take these relationship-intensive partnerships and bring them to scale. So here I go. Let's see if this works. Great. That's good. I don't mind being up here. I hate to be far away from the folks I'm talking to, but you guys will give me a break. So I want to start by grounding our conversations in the communities that, real communities and real organizations where there are folks who are interested in accessing the opportunities, both for that technology that's coming on board, but also for the real kind of transformative career-changing potentials of joining the workforce for clean industries or for home electrification. So we're going to first talk with some of our community partners who are doing this work directly. I'm going to start first with Nydia, who is with the Latino Workforce Academy. Nydia, the Latino Workforce Academy is one of those rare partners in the workforce that builds access to already skilled workers. Can you share a bit about the kinds of individuals who come through your programs and about where we find them on their career journeys and their capacities?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me? Perfect. Hi, everyone. Nice to see a room full of wonderful partners and people in the community. Nydia Martinez, with Executive Director of the Latino Academy of Workforce Development. So one of the things that we focus is on adult education and workforce readiness, right? So we serve individuals from 20 different countries and plus the United States, right? Who self-identify as Latinos or Hispanic, depending on what term you want to use. And within these communities, right now, what we are seeing with immigration processes is that we have individuals that they have the skill sets from their country of origin, right? Many of them, they have already their degrees and so on from the country of origin, but when they come to the United States, those degrees are not recognized. Also is the linguistic differences, and also there is certain cultural differences. For example, in Latin America and the rest of the world, we use the metric system, right? The one that makes sense. And here, we use other system that I'm not quite sure how it makes sense. Anyway, so the workforce, they know their stuff. They've been doing it in their countries. They know this, but when they get here, they need that translation, that help, that support, right? And also there's some cultural differences in what are the expectations of labor force here in the United States, what are the expectations that come in from their country. And again, we're talking about 20 different countries. Just because we use the term Latino, right, which is an overarching umbrella, internally there is so much diversity. But going back to the question, yes, so one of the things that we do is we are the help to navigate these individuals navigate the workforce here in the United States. So we help them with those certifications, we help them with getting those degrees being translated, and so they're recognized here in the United States, and sometimes they don't because different regulations in this country. So, but there is a workforce that is ready, they have the experience, they have done it in their countries, so we are opening the doors with the partnerships that we have here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So from there, I want to turn to Daniel. Daniel, can you introduce us to the Midwest Tribal Energy Resources Association and the tribes that you work with, all 36 of them, if I understand, across the Midwest? What is it that you see as the imperative and the opportunity of clean energy technology and these careers that are coming on board in tribal nations?
Oh, thank you. Buju, Wababedeneshe and Digikaz, Makodadem, Mashkazibi and Dunjaba. As mentioned, my name is Daniel Wiggins. I'm the MEMTERA, Midwest Tribal Energy Resource Association Executive Director. We provide avenues to clean energy through collective action through our 36 tribes. And so we serve 36 tribes in the Midwest. All of them are going to become member tribes by March. We have a lot of technical assistance services that we have been providing tribes, I would say, in the past decade, even a little bit longer, respecting my MTERA elders in the room. But providing avenues to those technical assistance and to some of those educational and workforce development pathways, right? I think that's what the meat of this conversation is about. Like, what are some of the barriers you see with some of the energy projects happening within your communities or within your environment? And I think we're seeing a lot of great projects. We just had a whole honor roll of projects just be presented to us in the state of Wisconsin. So we're seeing implementation projects happen in our areas. What we're not seeing, or what I wasn't seeing, is true workforce development pieces behind those projects. And so you have a lot of contractors moving around, right? But what we want in these smaller municipalities and tribes is to get these tribal members and these smaller municipality populaces to participate in some of these work environments and not just putting up solar panels, right? Because we all seen avenues to where tribal members and other municipalities, you have people putting up solar panels, right? What's next? How else can they continue to serve their populace, their communities, their municipalities, their tribes? And so we want to put true workforce development pieces, true on-ramps to some of the educational curriculum that already exists. So not recreating the wheel as well, because there's so much curriculum out there that supports some of our energy initiatives and tribal initiatives, because I love the cultural component. The cultural component is absolutely a barrier that tribes have seen a number of times with energy projects specifically. And so approaching workforce development with curriculum that's not just focused on energy, but focusing on those tribal values or those municipal values, right? It's not just tribal values, it's local values, community values that we want to see incorporated into these projects to make workforce development successful, but also make the project successful in the long run.
Thank you, Daniel. And I'm going to turn to our other two panelists. So Melissa and Ken, you both represent organizations kind of with an inverse geographic reach. Let's say Ken is from Madison Area Technical College. That's a physical place. That's a physical lab that he has and an actual campus. But your reach is far beyond the campus itself. And Melissa, you're a national organization coming from Elevate, but you drill all the way down to be most effective. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about each of your organizations. So Ken, if you can tell us a little bit more about the state-of-the-art facilities at Madison Area Technical College, and why are you building those connections to expand its reach across town, we know that, but also across the state, the region, and the country?
Sure, thank you for the question. Is that okay? Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm at Madison Area Technical College. We actually operate 7 different campuses across south central Wisconsin. We now have solar PV at 5 of those and wind at a 6th. So our total portfolio is approaching 3 megawatts of clean energy generation at those schools. We also operate a solar PV lab here in Madison where we've got a dozen systems that students take apart and put together every semester. And I mentioned this not to brag about Madison Area Tech College, but to make a broader point about technical colleges in general. What we do really well is provide hands-on training where we give people exposure to working with tools and equipment. And that's true whether we're doing it in the metric system or the English system. So everybody that comes out can measure in 30 seconds of an inch and get a job in Myanmar or Liberia if they decide to emigrate and become an expat. But more seriously, more people need to get that experience with tools and equipment. So, at Madison College, we have a renewable energy certificate program that our students can go through. We've also embedded solar in all of our electrical apprentice programs. So, solar is now an on-ramp, not just into the solar field, but for many students to pursue further education and become a journeyman electrician. And when they leave our institution, they're ready not just to do wiring in a commercial building, but to do wiring at any solar installation. And I think those are the kinds of resources at technical colleges, which are oftentimes referred to as community colleges, that can be leveraged with other organizations like the ones here on this panel to get more people that experience.
Thank you, Ken. Melissa, Elevate is a national organization focusing on equitable home electrification, and yet you run your programs at a very local level. You even employ and support contractors at a very local level. So the question for you is a little bit twofold. From that national perspective, what do you see as the scale of the opportunity, particularly in home electrification and community electrification, and those jobs that you've seen come on board in Wisconsin and elsewhere? And then why are the relationships so foundational to the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you so much. Elevate really looks to achieve climate action through equity. And so what that means is relationships are really at the center of everything we do. And part of that is definitely learning about and knowing about this exponential increase in opportunity. And that's in all different spheres. We do know that, unfortunately, certain technologies do tend to get prioritized in communities that have a lot of resources first. And so what we are looking to do every day is insert the opportunities in all communities so that everyone can benefit. And we certainly cannot do that without relationships. We know that none of us bring any one thing. So everybody in here brings the thing that we need to create the economic opportunities that every community member should have access to in every community. So what I mean by that is, some of us have the funds, some of us have the technical knowledge, some of us know how to train people. Some of us have the relationships with the communities that we want to serve and need to serve. And it's only when we come together and put those puzzle pieces that we're going to be able to tap the exponential growth that's coming up in the jobs and the installations that need to happen. I will also say, research has shown and our experience has shown how important these partnerships and relationships are. We're really lucky to work with a couple of partners both Slipstream and the Center for Energy and Environment on the Midwest Air Source Heat Pump Collaborative that many of you have heard of. We did extensive research on how to develop workforce programs, how to achieve economic equity in this field and in these markets. And the key finding was relationships. That is what builds the successful programming, and that in turn is what creates the best opportunities for community members. Ken said it right. It's the connection between the unions and the technical colleges, making sure that those relationships are leveraged in good and authentic ways so that we're all rowing together and achieving all the realm of possibilities.
Well, let's dive in on one of those kinds of partnerships that has been brought to fruition. There are a couple of, there's more than one partnership on stage here. There's actually more than 2 partnerships on stage here. But we're going to dive in on 2 explicit examples that are going to highlight the way that different, to Melissa's point, folks bring different things to the table. And so rather than reinventing the wheel, as Daniel said, how is it that we can tap in to the different skills that folks bring? And as you hear about these 2 partnerships that we're going to explore a little bit today, think about where do you fit into this kind of an ecosystem, because there's a role for workforce development in many of our industries, many of our particular frames of mind. So look for the partnerships that you might be able to tap into later. So we're going to start first with Daniel and Ken. Can you share the vision? First of all, I want to just, if you haven't heard the news, Mterra has received huge federal grants, and we're really excited about the opportunity for Mterra to expand. So Daniel is at the head of a new and growing team and a new and growing endeavor that is going to make a really big difference across Wisconsin's tribes, but the Midwest tribes. I'll let him tell you more about it. But I just want to say they won a huge Solar for All proposal, among others, and we're really excited about learning a bit more about what that means for workforce development, which is a huge component of it. So Daniel, can you share the vision of that $62 million Solar for All grant and the workforce opportunities that are going to accompany those new solar installations across those tribes? And then, along with Ken, explore this partnership and what is the benefit of having centralized technical partners to support those goals of such a distributed network of nations.
Yeah, I'll do my best is what I'll say. And so, it's not necessarily my vision. I have a great energy team, and I think a couple people have referenced, it's all about partnerships and relationships. So it's a collective vision. And I think Mterra is built on having collective initiatives and collective visions kind of be pushed forward. And so one, making sure it's not just a sole person's vision, I think is really important on making sure workforce development, but also project pieces are moving forward accordingly. The vision behind our workforce development piece is that we initiated, and I'll say UW, Oliver Schmitz was a huge key player in kind of pushing this with me. Is again, we identified immediately through some of the Bad River Tribe and other tribal projects that workforce development wasn't really being addressed appropriately. Meaning, again, we've seen people on the solar panels, but then once these projects begin operation and maintenance, there was no tribal members really kind of approaching the operation and maintenance technology side. So you've seen a lot of engineers, a lot of software designers, a lot of other trades that were participating in the operation and maintenance. And we foresee hey, we want tribal members. We want local municipality people in those positions. How do we make that, how do we accomplish that? And so in short, Oliver came from an educational institute, obviously UW-Madison, and had a strong background with building up curriculum, specifically with energy. Not only that, partnerships, right? It's not just UW. We have Ken right here, MAT, is it MAT? C. MATC, who's also a partner with UW, who became a partner with Bad River Tribe and Mterra as far as pushing the workforce development objectives. Now, the vision behind that is creating multiple avenues and multiple options for the for the ground level people who are going to participate in these programs. There's different levels. I just talked to a young man yesterday who I hear is a great lacrosse player, but he's in business development and real estate. And he immediately said, all energy projects have real estate issues. All projects need real estate. It's kind of what we were talking about, right? And so there's different avenues on what type of education you want to be put into, what's going to make your workforce development pieces successful. Incorporating all of those curriculums and creating these on-ramps from a university level is really important. But also working with MATC, identifying that the unions, the technical trades are just as valuable, right? Not forgetting about the trades program. And then even smaller, like what about the ground level people who maybe don't have college education, who only have a high school education and want to start advancing? We specifically partnered with Grid Alternatives to kind of provide that certification level and associate programming level, which on a small, I don't want to say on a small level, but on a ground level, really provides entry ramps to some of those people who want to get into the energy work beyond just installing solar panels. And so the vision is robust. It's a collective network of not just tribal community colleges, but technical colleges and universities and other intertribal organizations that provide educational avenues and pathways to make people successful, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to make the individual successful to help make the community successful.
Thank you, Daniel. Ken, would you like to add anything about serving as that centralized partner to such a broad network?
Yeah, well, I can say at Madison College, when we kind of got started in the renewable energy field 15, 20 years ago, we realized we could accomplish a lot here in South Central Wisconsin ourselves, but our impact would be much larger if we took our playbook and made it available to everybody else so they could replicate it. So we've done that with our curriculum. We've made it open source. We run institutes, train the trainer institutes for educators from other institutions, and provide them with all of our curriculum, our instructional materials. We give them training. We give them experience in our own labs, and in some cases go out and consult with their institutions to help them develop their own training programs. So that's kind of what's exciting about the EPA Solar for All grant, is it gives us an opportunity to work with, and I don't know if it was mentioned, but the Solar for All grant covers multiple states. So we'll be working with people in Michigan and Minnesota as well, which is not something that a small tech college from South Central Wisconsin would normally do. But there weren't many good things that came out of COVID, but we were talking a little bit earlier. One thing that did come out that was positive from that is we learned how to deliver instruction virtually. We were forced to do that, but now we can take portions of our curriculum and we can deliver it via distance education to folks so they don't have to come to our campus for 16 weeks to study with us. They can come to our campus for a short course to get the hands-on experience in the lab, and then the other part we can deliver virtually, or we can go and deliver remotely. So that just allows us to work with a lot more individuals from a lot more communities that otherwise might not have access to that kind of education.
Thank you so much for sharing this example. It's a really inspiring example of expanding the breadth if you have a specific kind of expertise, but making good use of those physical places of coming together. And I also want to acknowledge something that Daniel said that I thought was very interesting, was the way that these industries or new technologies showing up, like solar installations showing up, they transform communities not just because one person isn't installing a solar panel and leaving, as he's saying. It's actually the entire ecosystem of the economy can move in that direction. It's the project management, it's the real estate. There's a role for it to shift and then localize that progress in a specific community. And if we're talking about doing that at scale across the Midwest, it's a really exciting thing. But we're going to talk about drilling down into one specific community again with the Latino Academy of Workforce Development. Now, Ken was also a partner in this too, so they'll reference him again, but we're going to turn to Nydia and to Melissa to talk a bit about this partnership that has emerged between Elevate and Latino Academy and other technical partners to expand. Latino Academy has been around for 14 years, and it's been serving a community and been a really trusted partner for over 14 years to walk alongside folks who are coming aboard and trying to expand their opportunities for themselves, their families, their communities. So how did this partnership emerge to go from a traditional workforce programming to expanding into clean energy and home electrification programming? Can you tell us a little bit about how this relationship emerged and then how you engage with other partners to provide new kinds of services for the contractors who come through your doors? So I'll pass to Nydia and Melissa.
Yeah, sure.
You want to take it?
Yeah, I can kind of talk about the origin story a little bit. Talk about relationships and community. So my background with this particular partnership began when I was at a former organization. And so it just goes to show how building relationships and having continuity of community is really important to making impact. So there are folks in this room who have also been integral to building this partnership, and other organizations such as Sustain Dane that really came in with us at a ground level to figure out how we could best implement workforce programming around these particular technologies in this community. Certainly there had been things happening, but we wanted to deepen the impact. And so there was a very huge community organizing gap analysis effort where, again, authentic relationships were built. Folks came together to really try to understand how to make the best impact here. And we came across Latino Academy. Many of us had known with and worked with Latino Academy in the past, those of us who are from this community. And we're just so incredibly impressed with the deep connections that they have within their community and their clients, and in turn, then their clients' commitment to their communities and their neighborhoods. It is just this really profound connection and profound relationships that really drew our attention and wanted us to continue partnership. So it was also easy because of the skilled workforce, right, that Latino has invested in, and the folks that come to receive services from them. And so we decided to kick off some cohorts of contractors, train them up, really meet the contractors where they were. And we had folks from plumbing to electrician. We also had some landscapers show up, which is kind of like how, but they wanted to know, talk about those on-ramps for building. If you have the business skills and you have a construction mindset, we can get you there. If you have the technical construction skills but need your business skills, we can get you there. And so that was really what we were excited about when partnering with Latino Academy. And we've had a lot of success. We've trained several individuals, I think at least 2 cohorts we've held with a lot of different class themes. We've helped folks get certifications with local governments, do a whole host of things, and that's also where Madison College comes in. So yeah, I guess, Nydia, I'd love to hear from you a little bit more around taking it from there to the current state.
Absolutely. So thank you, Melissa, for a wonderful introduction of our partnership. So I stepped into the role of director of the Latino Academy in the last 6 months. So Melissa has the history of this relationship that they had. So one part of it, the approach has been that we approach the individuals in a very holistic way, right? As Daniel was saying, is the culture is like you are not just working with an individual, you're working with the community, with the family, with the history with them. So as you mentioned, many of them already come with all these skill sets. And just so some statistics that people are more likely, especially coming from Latin America, they're more likely to set up a business than to learn the language, right? Because they have already the skill set, they know. And also one of the things that we value is also experience, not just education. Sometimes we put so much effort into having the paperwork and the certifications and all that stuff, and we forget the experience. So that was one of the things that we had built, those relationships is so important in the community because we build trust. People come to us is because we have that trust that we have created with the community, and that is such an important component, right, as be able to get this workforce ready, because there is a workforce ready, but and we are missing the talent because we have all this red tape across and this whole cultural misunderstanding across that is with these partnerships that we have here, for example, on stage and beyond, is really important to create those on-ramps opportunities for individuals and solve a lot of problems that we have if we give the opportunity and go beyond just very structured ways of thinking that it has to be very linear, right? When there is so many more opportunities to do that. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to highlight that one part of the story that we haven't gotten to yet, but it's I can't help it. I want to share it with you is because I first heard it from Ken, and then I talked about, or first, I don't remember who I heard it from first, but when you all came to Madison College, this is and I think Renew was there too, and there's a bunch of different folks in the room who are helped to make this all happen, that there was this cohort, and you all figured out how to really meet folks where they were, and that included simultaneous translation. So just if anybody wants to paint a picture of what that was like, I would love to just share that image with folks in the room.
Speak to that a little
Yeah,
bit.
please come in.
So Madison College has worked with the Latino Academy for a number of years, and anybody that's worked in the construction field know there's a lot of people of Hispanic heritage in that profession. Yeah. This was about 2 years ago, I guess, the Academy came and said, could you guys offer a class in solar PV? And well, yo hablo español, pero solamente un poquito. Y muy lentamente, only a little, very slow, right? So we'd never done anything of that sort before, but the folks at the Academy said, well, we'll provide a real-time translator. And we had a class of about 14 individuals. About a third spoke English. About a third had, sort of moderate command, functional command for the workplace, and a third only spoke Spanish. And I will tell you, that was the best class I've ever taught. These folks knew their way around a job site, they knew workplace safety, they knew their way around tools and equipment. We got twice as much done in those 3 days than we do with a regular solar PV class. It was incredible, and we can't wait to do it again.
Now you see why I wanted them to tell a story. Do you have anything that you wanted to add, Nydia or Melissa, about that experience?
No, I think, opening those pathways and say, things like simultaneous translation, taking in consideration culture and the respect of the communities, right? Because in our case, it's not just the Spanish, but we also serve indigenous populations, right? They're not Latinos, they're not Hispanic, have nothing to do with that, those cultures, and yet they come to us, and it's bringing all those bridges together. It makes such an impactful contribution to the workforce, to the community, to the society.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I was told, in case anybody's panicking looking at the clock, I was told I have until 1:15. So I'm going to take all that time. We're going to just ask one or two questions here to our panelists, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience. So if you've been submitting questions via the app, Sam's going to bring them to me shortly here. But first, I'm just going to ask, we've been talking a lot about what makes these programs work well. And I'm excited to, we can talk about what makes them work well, but this is also an opportunity for us to think about how can we be improving? So what else is needed, either to make them more equitable, to make them more sustainable in the longer term, to look at some political headwinds and how are we going to, politicize proof this workforce work? And in terms of funding, what kinds of partnerships should we be pursuing together to make these programs work longer, better, with a further reach? This is to anyone to go ahead. So Daniel, come on in. You're ready. He's ready.
Money helps, right?
Yeah.
Funding helps. She gave me a good segue before, and I didn't really emphasize on it. But Mterra secured 2 major grants. One was a Solar for All, around $62 million, providing straightforward implementation for residential solar at about $1.15 million for all of our 36 tribes. The other grant, that's clear. Good job, Mterra. The other grant, though, and this one is the one that's dear to my heart, because what do you need to make these programs and these other initiatives successful? People, right? People that need these programs and these initiatives. And so we were also awarded a community change grant, specifically providing each tribe capacity funds for the next 3 years. So providing that springboard, and not just a short term, 3 years is quite a bit of time, but providing that springboard for tribes to put energy leaders into those pathways immediately. And so we have energy leaders, elders that I like to call, sorry Mike Troji, I'm gonna call you out, but we have tribal elder leaders, energy leaders that are out there right now, and they're not gonna need such a robust program. They're gonna be able to come into some of these simpler modules, get trained up, and continue kind of their initiatives and objectives for their tribes. But then there's this next generation coming up, these people who are gonna get into these tribal energy leader roles. how do we make sure that they're in tune with the industry as it progresses? And so this is one of our avenues of not just creating programs and curriculum, but again, putting students into the seats that are directly affiliated with the tribes that we are serving. And so again, focusing on community initiatives, community benefits sections within the grants are important. And I'm going to say that these EJ40 sections and these community benefit sections within these grants are important. They're addressing true community needs, specifically around some of the workforce development pieces that I feel have been left out on a lot of these grants and a lot of these projects for the last 10 years. And so you're seeing hard programming, hard curriculum, hard pathways get put into these grants, and then you're also seeing the feds really step up and support the capacity roles. We've never seen energy capacity funding like this ever in Indian country or abroad in the nation. And so this is huge. And so these two initiatives, CCG with Solar for All, is providing the springboards for energy leaders and then putting them right into the environment of distributing solar and making sure residential solar is successful in their communities. So getting people to the table is also, but funding helps, right guys?
Lydia?
Yeah, and actually, can you hear me? I wanted to add to that, I second that, money, right, is always necessary for this. And unrestricted funding is really, really important because sometimes the funding can be so restricted that we can only do certain things, but we still have to pay the, the bills, we had to pay the rent, we had to pay all these other things in order to run a program. So unrestricted funding is always important. But I also wanted to add that, yes, be at the table, but sometimes when my frustration comes is when it's not just being at the table, but sometimes the food is already cooked for us, right? And so I don't want to be at the table, I want to be at the kitchen and cooking that food with everyone around that table, right? And so I think that's what is the power for that. So I wanted to, because we are coming in and be in equitable partnerships. And it means that bring us at the same level. We are not just water carriers for others. So that's very important for us. Yeah.
I love getting in at the kitchen level. As a good Greek woman, I always am in the kitchen. And I like to make sure everybody gets fed at a big table, so that makes me very happy. I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to look at the questions from the audience. This is the question that we're talking a lot about just how intensive this is and getting folks into the kitchen early, right? This is not free. I know it costs money, as we were discussing, and it does, but it's not free in terms of time, in terms of effort. In terms of trust isn't free either. Trust takes time. These relationships that you're talking about, it's Oliver reaching out early and getting in on a grant early, right? It's talking about building these connections early and often through partners like Sustain Dane and dreaming together about what can be done and pursuing funding together and building partnerships and bridges into that ecosystem. All that takes time. And we're scattered for it. So my big question is, we have an urgency at the moment. We have a need to sort of politicize proof this, but we also, you are all here from the industry in some shape or form, and things are moving, right? Like the market is moving in the direction we want it to go. So we don't want communities to be left behind simply because it requires a lot of time and intensive relationship building first. But we know what's necessary. So this is the kind of question of the conundrum there of how do we bring things to scale from your experiences? How can we bring things to scale that do take time and do take intensive relationships? Do you have any insights about how we can meet the scale of the opportunity? This is to anyone.
Yeah.
I'll take a crack at it if you like.
Let's do Ken and then Melissa. That'd be perfect.
So I'll address your comment on time and also what Daniel touched on there, a need for infrastructure, hard equipment. You can't train somebody if they can't touch the equipment, especially technicians. And also a need to reach out to the next generation. If there's students in a high school, they've got a pretty good idea what the career path looks like to become a nurse or to become a teacher. Most of those students have no idea what the career path looks like to get into the clean energy industry. And they probably don't have role models to do it. So how can we address all three of those things? And I would say if you can leverage existing projects that are already in the pipeline to serve more than one purpose. And what I mean by that is, we saw several examples of some really nice solar projects going on schools. There's also examples around the state of schools that have managed to integrate education in those projects and get training for individuals while those projects are happening. And if anybody in the audience is working on a Solar on Schools project and would like suggestions about how to make that happen, I'd invite you to pay us a visit. We've got a couple papers published on it, and like I said, we publish our playbook as an open source resource for other schools to use. So the more we can tap into existing projects to accomplish more than one objective, magnifies the impact of that work.
Perfect. Melissa?
Yeah, thank you. I love the quote, "You can only move at the speed of trust." And the good news is there's already trust. There are so many circles of trust in this room that stretch outside of these walls with your communities, our communities. We just have to unlock that. And so while it can feel somewhat insurmountable because of all of the connections that need to be made, we can all just be responsible for our own connections, and that's gonna get us so incredibly far. And I think these partnerships on stage are a testament to that. We were able to jump in, not necessarily because we had one-on-one historical knowledge. We had just met for the first time today, but virtually notwithstanding, but we are already showing up to the space ready to work together because of the strong history that our organizations have. So we can't downplay what might seem small, that one connection, that one colleague, the person that you're sitting with right now at your table that you might not have met before or that you might have worked with before. Those are the key. We can speed up moving at the speed of trust. We can make it faster if we are just strategic and we share our relationships and we make sure that we're filling each other's cups and speaking positively about who we know that's doing the good work. Yeah.
Wonderful. So everybody is involved. I really appreciate that answer, and I love that it moves at the speed of trust. I'll add an addendum. You can always borrow trust while you're building it. So you can borrow the trust from an organization or a partner, mutual partner. You can borrow it so you build it yourself. And I think that might be that interim step of being willing to build the bridge, even if you don't exactly know what the end piece is, right at the end, you can get going with what you've got. Sorry to answer my own question. So I'm gonna ask your questions. This one I think is for Ken, but anybody can answer. What skills and training programs are most needed to develop Wisconsin's clean energy workforce?
Well, I would say for starters, almost every contractor I know of is looking for electricians. The challenge is it takes 5 years to produce a journeyman electrician, right? So we have to grow that pipeline for sure. And then in general, there's a need all across the industry for not just people doing the hands-on construction work, but people doing finance, land acquisition, right? Every solar project's got a road that gets built or a stormwater management plan. So, there's careers that I think young people don't even realize are part of this industry that are available to them. And there's just a lot of education that needs to happen.
I love that. Well, this is, somebody asked a question, which was one of the other questions that I had wanted to pose to you too, Daniel, so I'm excited this one goes to you. Does MTerra want to create career paths for tribal members to maintain systems for the tribe themselves, or develop them to be hired by companies who will maintain the systems installed? And then I wanted to, we're talking about the tribal sovereignty and energy sovereignty and keeping jobs that are there, but this is also about not just staying there, but is it so that they get hired and go outside of the tribal nation as well?
Yeah, all of the above. It really is, and you don't want to just. I think don't be putting all your eggs in one basket. Don't be just identifying one pathway and focusing on it. You have to focus on the multitude of pathways. To what he said, we need electricians, we need engineers, we need land developers, we need planners, we need, across the board, I think energy is lacking the amount of assistance they need for the amount of funding that's out there. I think it's totally fair. And so it's about putting tribal members in all of the pathways. We want them into the local operation and maintenance plans of these systems is first. We want to see them building the systems. We want to see them operating the systems. Then we want to see them working with contractors, becoming designers, becoming planners and developers, working on the environmental issues. Tribes feel like we have a heads up on all of the environmental issues to a certain degree. So it's really important for us to start incorporating ourselves in some of these objectives to make sure that our tribal and our local values are being included into these projects. And so it's everywhere. That's why you're seeing MTerra approach the energy leaders. And so if you look at energy leaders, myself included, I worked for the Bad River Tribe for about a decade as their energy coordinator. I was in policy work for like 5 years before I even got to an implementation project. So I didn't even see construction or see anything. They had me in right-of-way policies. And in the moment, you're not thinking policies are awesome, right? I don't think anybody in the moment was like, oh my God, this is a great time, guys, we're doing policy work. But those policies really springboard successful projects to land acquisitions, land identifications, right-of-way and utility relationships. How do those move forward? And so we need tribal members in almost all aspects. They had me working on all aspects and angles of these projects, one guy. And even though Bad River was somewhat successful, imagine if we had a person focusing on each one of those vital categories. One person working on the planning and development, another person working on the lease, and another person working on the design and construction, and so on and so on. And so it's about putting tribal members, but also non-tribal. I think it's really easy for MTerra or a tribal, intertribal organization to sit up here and say, hey, we're doing this for our tribes, right? But there's also all the local municipalities around it that are gonna absolutely benefit from those same systems. Ken's not creating something just for a tribal member. He's creating something for a tribal member that also a non-tribal member can also access. Now imagine non-tribal members accessing those educational curriculums that are incorporating tribal and environmental and local values that are beneficial to those communities. Success is astronomical then, right? I mean, you're seeing success built into the education models. You're gonna see success in a lot of the outputs and deliverables. And so there's a lot of work, but we're looking and hoping to put a lot of those tribal members and non-tribal members into all the places.
Thank you, Daniel. So there was a little clap there, and I agree. This is a good question, I think, for Nydia. Do the economics work? Do most everyone who graduates from programs get good jobs? Do job providers help fund programs? How have you seen that with the folks who come through Latino Academy? Maybe Elevate can talk about this with contractors too, but does the economics of the workforce training work to deliver the career-sustaining or family-sustaining jobs?
Yeah, so one of the things that is part of our mission, right? Make sure, because they're not only getting the training, but once they get the certifications, the next step for us is to help them with employability skills, right? How to write a letter of presentation, how to do an interview, because again, those are cultural skills. You know, necessarily the same thing that works in your home country doesn't mean that that's how it works here. So that is the next step. So we support the individual from the beginning all the way to where they're set up. Once they're set up, there is a follow-up, a 30-day follow-up, a 60-day follow-up, and a 90-day follow-up to make sure that there is that support network for them. So, and then the other thing too is that we do have an intake form, and we assess the people that are coming in. We have limited resources to be offered, right? And not everyone has the commitment. They might have the need, but not everyone has the commitment to succeed or to put the effort what is required for this. So when the individual comes in, we have the intake forms, and we make sure that there is some level of commitment from them, so that so that we know that resources are going to be properly utilized. So that's why we see a success in the process for them to be able to get a better wages.
Wonderful. We have just a minute left, so I'm gonna pass the last word to each of you. So you can each. I just wanted to give you the floor for a last thought with the group here. From the perspective of your organizations, as you think about partnerships, what is the invitation to folks here around joining workforce partnerships and the ways that we can be scaling up. So we'll first pass to you, Melissa.
Thank you for giving me that right away, that question. No, it's a great question. I think what I shared earlier is we can all do something. We can all do something. Right now, in particular, there's a lot of insecurity, or folks are dealing with a lot of new changes. So let's center in on what we can do. We can mentor a training participant. We can fund an organization that is doing training. There's so many things that we can do, and we can give examples. I won't give you all the list right now, but we can all do something to create economic opportunity in our communities. We're here to support. We can give you the tools. You can give us the tools. We're all in it together.
Yeah, thank you. And I will second that. I think the support, the financial support is so important, especially in these levels of uncertainty for everyone who is here, right? And the partnerships. And if you have not, perhaps you have not met our communities, reach out. Because we want to meet you. We want to partner with you. We want to connect with you. And this is not the only partnerships. I think there's so many opportunities. And so I think I will leave yes, reach out. Come in, let's make a partnership. And even if perhaps the partnership doesn't make sense between us directly or the people who are here directly, but perhaps you know someone else that does, right? So that is an opportunity. So that is how we build community. That's how we borrow trust and connect with trust. So yeah.
I think the one thing that everybody in the room could do is help to champion the technology more. There's still a lot of people, I talk to students every day who aren't sure if solar works in a far north state like Wisconsin. And there's still a belief out there that if you have a wind farm in your house next door that your television might not work on calm days, right? And those messages are out there in the press, and we need to counter that with actual factual information about how effective clean energy technology is and how affordable it is and how important it is to our country for American competitiveness. And that's something that I think Renew does a really good job with this summit, is bringing those voices together to give everybody, a sense of empowerment to go out and carry that message forward.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Just engage, reach out. I always tell people, they're like, Dan, how do we reach out and communicate with tribes? I'm like, we got phones, we got emails, just like everybody else. Hard to believe, but we do. And so it don't take much. Exchange information. Don't be worried about collaboration. There is sensitivity with tribes, so I'll be respectful. Tribes are like, it's a little more than that, but there is sensitivity. So understanding that each tribe is also different, but also that each tribe does want to likely engage with you guys. They want to start having these hard conversations, and they want to start partnering with people, whether you're local or whether you're an educational institute, whether you just have great ideas. Tribes are embracing those conversations. And that's the other thing, is embracement, right? It's not just you guys reaching and engaging with me, but it's important for people like myself to embrace those engagements. I think in the past decade, there was a lot of people reaching out, wanting to touch base with tribes, and I think there was a lot of hesitancy by tribes for a multitude of reasons, though. We have our reasoning, and so I don't want to disrespect tribes. They have their reasoning. But what you're seeing is tribes really coming around, embracing additional partnerships. So all you guys have to do is reach out, engage, and we're going to welcome a lot of new partners and stuff to the teams, because it is going to take a team effort and a collective effort, not just from a small team or this team or that team, but really all teams coming together and accomplishing the goals of the nation. Because at the end of the day, we're not just here to save our communities or our houses or our individuals. We're here to save the world. And I know that's a cliche statement, but it's absolutely possible, guys. We got to get behind it.
That's why I gave Daniel the note to end on. Thank you so much to our panelists for having this discussion with us. Thank you to all of you who let us be your afternoon entertainment before we move on to the rest of the afternoon. Thanks to Renew for having this as the focal point of this conversation today. We're really excited about all the opportunities that presents, and please come and chat up each of our panelists and find the opportunities that connect with your work. And thank you.